we've seen more of your wife than we've seen of you this year.
No, I know. It's very, very fun at house because I'm trying to sleep and you guys are making her be loud. Now, my wife is loud at the best of times, but now you are saying things to her and she's high pitched. So only you guys and like cats can hear her, but she somehow reverberates to my bones at like whatever god awful time you've got her on the show. But it's been very entertaining. The other day I was at a speaking gig and a lady walked up to me after the gig, and you know you kind of get used to these things. And she came up to me and said to me, "I listened to your wife on Cliff Central," and I thought that's pretty rad. That is absolutely the coolest thing ever. So thank you so much for that.
That's cool. So listen, tell us about this new book of yours. What did you do this for? I mean, most people, a book is hard work. I know you've written a couple of other ones as well, but a book is hard work. It's something that goes, it's a record. It gets kept. Whereas you do a show like we do in the morning, most people forget what we talked about yesterday. Why did you decide to write another book?
To make lots of money. Okay, now let me actually caveat this with so this is not going to make lots of money, but the idea is in this. Okay, so here's the thing: books sell talks sell work down the line. So I mean, I could give you if you wanted to. I believe strongly in a connection with the importance of, and I believe very, very strongly with the ideas in the book. But ultimately, you do something to get your ideas out into the world, and then the hope is that the world wants to come back and get more of your ideas. So the book is an entry point. You want to get to the point where it's making people have more questions and think, hey, I need a bit of a guide to take this further. And of course, that's what our business helps with. So the book was there to introduce and to connect a problem in the world with us. And then once those two things exist, if people now think, well, this problem feels like one too big for me to go alone, maybe we should engage with that company. Now, I hope that many people will have enough in the book in order to solve the problem for themselves. But I kind of hope that you won't. I hope that you'll need to come
yeah, but I mean, this is the problem, right? You put all your secrets in here and then people aren't going to come to your business for help anymore because they're going to go, we bought Rich's book. We don't need him. We've got everything in here. He's given us the manuscript.
So, yes, but the bottom line is that people are one of two things. They're lazy or busy. And it's usually busy. People are too busy doing their job to do what you're now telling them that you want them to do. So they need help. Especially true if you work in a large corporation. It's very, very easy to hire other people because you're not spending money, you're spending budget. And budget's a very, very different thing. So if people can then come and engage with you and say, okay, cool, well, we got a bit of budget and what we don't have is time, but we do have budget. Maybe you guys can come in and help us. But like, I'm being a bit facetious. I wrote the book because I strongly believe in the ideas. It actually started off as a talk. I'd written a talk for a Think Sales conference. I liked the idea, so I formed it into a little ebook. So I couldn't get all my ideas across in this talk. That ebook was like 20 odd pages and it did really, really well. And it drove a lot of business towards our business. And I thought, no, man, even the ebook, I didn't have time to put what I really wanted into it. So I expanded it into the whole book.
So listen, the last time we had you on, and we'll come back to the book in a second, but the last time we had you on, you told us how important it is. And this was at the beginning of lockdown last year. That's how long ago we last saw you on the show. You were telling us how important it is to like set up some kind of way of doing home meetings and conferences and stuff, like where you have to actually make your background nice and you have to have a good microphone and all of this shit. Now, I see a very impressive background there. Are you in a studio or something, or is this just in your house? Oh, look at that.
It's my home studio. Yeah. Stop it. And it's cool as well because I can also be a potato. Hey, what's going on?
For people who are listening and aren't watching, so Rich has got this really cool background with a whole bunch of skateboards on it and all the rest of it. And then he switched cameras and then he turned himself into a little animated potato. So that's pretty cool.
And it could be worse. It's like, I figured out if this isn't going well, I can also become Jasmine. Hi.
Oh, wow. That is amazing.
Oh, that's wild. He just turned into a woman. That's amazing.
Yeah.
What do you use for that?
But you can do now. It's totally okay.
What did you do with that? I mean, how does that work? No, it's fine.
There's a little app called Snap Camera. And it's super easy. I think it's made by Snapchat or whatever. And it's so easy and it's free. And so there's a bunch of filters. Yeah. And obviously this can be stupid if you use it too much. But I found like some interesting applications for it. So if I'm having, sometimes, if our customers haven't paid us on time, and my account person says to me, listen, this person hasn't paid us for a while. It's a bit of a problem. It's getting a bit silly. So I'll send them a video and be like, hey guys, I know the project went well. So thank you so much for engaging with us. But if you wouldn't mind at all, please, could you pay the bill? It's not a biggie, but don't worry about it.
That's hilarious.
And
the
idea is to try and have a little bit of fun with things, but to do it subtly. Now, today I'm just kind of all over the place with this, but in a presentation, there may be 1 or 2 cues where I want to use it or things. And then, that will go into other tools I have like Prezi. So if I wanted to, I could also bring up content and things like that relatively easily.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's a great. What the nice thing about presenting online now, about the world we live in, is that you stop being just the presenter, and you're also the stage manager. If you want to change your lighting, you want to do things and get different looks and stuff. And so it's given us room to play in a way that we didn't have before. And so that's been fun. So it's allowed me to think. I don't want to it's a 4D presenting experience now, which is pretty rad.
That's amazing.
I think that's amazing.
Love it.
Yeah, and people have to start thinking creatively. I mean, there's nothing worse than those cameras that shine up into someone's chin, and they've got a terrible microphone that's popping the whole time, or you hear this hiss in the background the whole day. It's just awful.
Let's not forget the judge who turned himself into a cat for the entire hearing.
Yeah. That's right. He didn't know how to change it. So, Rich,
it's one of my favorite hacks. Sorry. One of my favorite hacks, if you live with somebody who does Zoom calls, if you go into at the bottom of so there's a bit that's called virtual light filters in their camera settings. Now, if you go to the very bottom of that setting on Zoom, there's a thing that says Studio Effects. It's on the bottom right. Now, if you go to Studio Effects, it's where you can actually thicken your eyebrows or make a better mustache and things like this. So if you did want to actually add stuff. The best thing about it is, and it's so hard to find, there's a little setting there that says apply to all future meetings. So your job is to find the person in your house and give them a mustache for all their future meetings that they will have no idea how to turn off. They will be like that Judge Cat.
That's so
you
great.
have to literally go into a setting, and uncheck a box. Beautiful.
But it is amazing how when you watch people doing this stuff, and I'm sure you've seen this too in presentations, there are some people who are so vain and so self-absorbed that they're pretty much looking at their own picture the whole time. You know what I mean?
Right. So there's 2 ways around that. The one way, you can't do it in StreamYard, but in a tool like Zoom, I often find if I'm having a one-on-one meeting, I go to hide self-view, and it makes it easier to engage people. The other is to use, so right now I'm looking through a teleprompter. So I don't actually use a teleprompter for teleprompting, but I use it so that I can stare directly at the camera, directly at you guys. But okay, now you put me full screen, but I would normally be looking directly at you guys, and it doesn't look like I'm looking in the wrong place. Another fantastic tool, if you want to try and get that without the expense of a teleprompter, I highly, highly recommend PlexiCam.
What is that?
What it is a small little tool like this.
Yeah. Okay.
And so if you imagine there's a yoke here. Now this goes over your screen. And so what happens is your camera can now move up and down and across on this clear setting. I know, sorry, this is really, really terrible audio for those watching or listening. But so then your camera would be here, and it would be sitting on this device on the middle of your screen instead of sitting here at the top of your screen. So you can maintain perfect eye contact with people without, and listen, my book is about selling with a story. You cannot be convincing if you've got if you're not setting the basic standards correctly. If people walk up and they look at you and they've not set things up, you're looking down their nose, you've not made an effort, your ethos is all wrong. So they may like your logos may be good, your information, your pathos, how you connect to them emotionally may be good, but they don't really trust you as a source. That's problematic. Like, you got to sort that shit out.
Sure.
It's
Absolutely.
so true. There are people that I work with, and I can't connect with them because they've got some camera coming up their chin and they're looking way up, and you feel like you're not being listened to when you speak to them. There's no connection.
Yeah, it's terrible. a good standard rule of thumb for me is the top knot. Now, bear in mind, so if you go to negotiation school, the first thing they're going to teach you, and it's so cheesy, but unfortunately this kind of thing works, is, you
Mm-hmm.
bring in the person and you sit on the higher chair, you put them on the lower chair, right? So that
Yes.
they're kind of sitting down and you're looking down at them. One of the things that everybody says to me, so I'm like, I don't know, 5'8" or something, 5'7", 5'8". I'm not a tall person, I'm like medium height. But one of the
Mm-hmm.
things that a lot of people say to me when they now meet me in person for the first time is, oh, you're shorter than I expected. And the reason is because I fill the screen properly. So I'm at regular tall person height. And the rule is to top knot. Take your fist, put it above your head, and make sure, I mean, you guys are all spaced very well, that's roughly the good height for you to be. I also have a desk that can move. So if I do want to, go, ladies and gentlemen, there was a man who can do things, and you can get it set to the height you need to get it to.
Very cool.
But a lot of people are sitting down here. Now, if you're sitting down here, just think about how you're positioning yourself in the room. So getting these basics right. And as far as I'm concerned, I don't know if you feel this, but I get into meetings now. If somebody looks like shit, 18 months into this thing, 20 months into this thing, I'm sorry, you're just not making an effort. Like I'm in my 5th, 6th iteration and I'm already planning other things. Just, invest a tiny bit.
And these days, this is your office. I mean, think about what the rent for office space would have been before. Or if you're working at the place and you're not paying the rent, the petrol costs that you would have had to pay to go in and out of the office. So if you are working from home, put some goddamned effort in.
Yeah, I mean, and it's a stupid thing. And I know you won't believe this because I look bloody terrible, but I put powder on my face every morning before I get onto a Zoom call. And people will say, no, but this is ridiculous. But here's the thing, guys. Like if you were going into a video studio and I've got a big effing light right in front of me here, a key light. If you were going into a video studio where you have a high-end camera and a big bloody light on your face, somebody comes up to you before and they dab makeup on you. Why? They're not doing this because you're on TV. They're doing this because you're on camera. And the camera and the lighting and your face and oils and things work together and will make you shine. So this is not being this metro guy that's trying to do things. It's just trying to actually show up as the best version of yourself.
Oh, sure.
If you don't want to do that,
if it works for people who are doing professional television shows, then it'll work for you.
Right.
Makes sense.
You need your edge. You need to have your unfair advantage, your small little thing. You want to. There's that joke about the plane crashes in the jungle and the two dudes and the ones putting on their Nikes when they hear the lion roar and it says, you're not going to outrun the lion. It says, no, I only have to outrun you. That's it. You just have to outrun the other people on the call. So if you can do a small little thing to be slightly better than the other humans, and you can look slightly more professional than the other people pitching to that company, then all of these cues are like, these guys are professional. So why not give yourself that unfair advantage?
I mean, how's that any different to pitching up for a meeting and looking like you've dressed properly, as opposed to, and we're not trying to impress each other. We're just trying to look professional. And the person who pitches up in their dressing gown and slippers,
Absolutely. I mean, you've got to. So, and again, I absolutely don't want this to be a sales pitch for the book, but this is the stuff that I'm going through in my head. You're trying to sell. The whole book talks about the difference between storytelling and story selling. Yeah.
You do talk about a lot of this in the book. So, I mean, this is all relevant. What we would have talked to you about anyway, if you just asked us,
In my mind, what we're trying to do is we're trying to sell the humans another story in which we play a more important part. Right. So I'm trying to get to my customer. And right now I'm just, guy on Zoom call. That's that in their movie. That's my job. That's who I was. What my job is not to become the hero of their story, but to audition for a better part. So I have to position myself and sell them a story in which they need me. And in order to sell that story, I've got to get all those little cues correct. It's not just about what you say. I mentioned earlier about the logos, pathos, and ethos, but call it your head, your heart, and your gut. Okay? If they can logically want to deal with you, but they and you care about the topic, but you don't like the person, then that's a problem, right? That's basically every political discussion you have. People present evidence about a topic you care about, but you don't like them, so their evidence is shit. So you've got to check all three of these boxes. Most people just turn around and they check the first box. Oh, I'm just going to give them logic and spew out facts. You're not going to persuade anyone to do anything with that. You got to check all the boxes.
So I quote here from your book, if Aristotle's modes of persuasion, which are logos, that's the head, pathos, that's the heart, and ethos, that's the gut, let us understand the appeals that we need to make in the mind of our audience, then what you've put together here as the action framework gives you a structure. And you said there are 4 things. I mean, this is just an example of what you cover in the book. You say, number 1, give them a reason to care. Number 2, give them a reason to believe. Number 3, tell them what they need to know. And number 4, tell them what they need to do. I mean, if this is pretty advanced stuff for some people who just go into a meeting without any idea of what's likely to be achieved. They're kind of just ticking it off. It's in their diary. It's just something they have to do. That's why a lot of people just don't achieve a damn thing in their lives, right? They just never get anything done after a meeting either.
The problem with a lot of people is that they're on the okay plateau. So think about typing, right? When you started typing, you couldn't type at all. You couldn't type for shit. Then you learn to type a little bit. And that beginning curve was difficult. So you're sitting there and you're learning, you're trying to figure out where the Q and the W and eventually you're like, hey, I'm okay at this. And you're typing away and you're on the okay plateau. So you've now entered good enough. And for many people, good enough is. But if you want to achieve any type of mastery, good enough isn't. This is where Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000 hours are misunderstood. Right? I've done 10,000 hours of typing since I entered the OK plateau, but I've not got any better. I'm not improving. I'm still the shit hunt and peck typist. The only way to get better at something is to decide to go to mastery. So what we've done is we've taken everybody who, yes, you're good enough to show up, and yes, you're good enough to do a basic presentation, and you understand how to do that. Because a lot of people are like, oh, I've done 1,000 presentations. Yes, and they're all crap. But what I want to do is say to you, how can we give you a couple of tools that can help get you to the next phase of mastery? And what I've tried to do is not to give you these super advanced tools, but to give you the next step up that mountain. So again, like what you said, give them a reason to care, give them a reason to believe, tell them what they need to know, and tell them what they need to do. It may be a more advanced structure than you're using currently, because most people don't use a structure. But I mean, even from those 4 sentences in order, you understand basically what I'm asking you to do. It's not complex. It's just advanced.
No, I love it. I mean, listen, Rich, if we can just get everybody to make a little bit more of an effort with their presentations, with their meetings, with their general attitude to how to get things done in business, I'm all for it. That's why I love the idea of this book, and I would recommend it to anybody, no matter what business you're in. It's really, really helpful. It'll just help you to be less boring and more persuasive. I mean, if nothing else, right?
Yep. Well, that's my hope. It's all about using your eloquence to persuade people to do stuff for good. And I think that if we can get that right, if we can figure out how other humans think, other people think, and figure out what we can do to move them, then we win. And so do they. Because I do think that we should be going through life as a cooperative game. And,
the importance of stories, that's the crux of your book, really. Humans have told each other stories since the dawn of time. Those stories can sometimes turn into really important tools that we use every day in an economy or in society. And sometimes those stories are just useful so that we can amuse each other. But either way, we've got to be better at telling stories. And the people who are the best at telling the stories are the ones who make the most money, who have the happiest lives, who have the best relationships, who have the most sex, who have the most enjoyable holidays, because you can tell a good story about them. I mean, who isn't attracted to the idea of being around a great storyteller, someone like Billy Connolly or George Carlin or any of those great comedians, or even the people who've written these amazing novels that all of us love so much? Those are the people who we regard the most highly. And if you can learn how to tell better stories, then you're on your way to all kinds of success. It's called Here Be Dragons with Rich Mulholland. It's really good to see you again, dude. What are your plans for December? Are you doing anything fun? You're always traveling. What's up with you?
Yeah, we just came back I was on a US speaking tour, and we were in Cancun, and now we're actually relaxing over Christmas. We were considering going to Glasgow for a couple of weeks, but we're actually doing that next year anyway. And we were still busy contemplating that, and now that's obviously not happening. But we were,
your accent definitely needs sharpening up. So
totally.
I'm glad to hear you.
I go there for a week. I'm like, hello there, right? What's going on? I come back, how's it? How you guys? Stop it.
I know, it's so weird. And I mean, just listening, the last time you were on, it's weird. It was just audio and we were in a studio setting. But your accent has definitely become more South African during lockdown. It's unbelievable.
Well, that's strange because I've been here like 38 years. So I'm surprised that it kind of really depends on how I feel, I think. If I'm like angry or passionate, I get very Scottish. And when I'm just like being myself, I'm like very Santon. Yeah.
Listen, has Jasmine pulled out all those Christmas decorations that she told us about earlier this year?
Dude. Do the Kennedys like bullets? Okay, so Jasmine pulled out those. Basically, she started trying to do it before my birthday. That's on October the 16th. I was like, no, listen, this has got to stop. Then she tried between my birthday and Halloween. I was like, no, you got a Halloween. So this year, she was like, I'm going to get my passion going. And she did Halloween, which now is a new thing. So now our whole house was Halloweened to hell. Like it looked
right.
pretty badass. I'll be honest. Like kids were coming past taking photos. So that was amazing. But then that one, there wasn't a ending gap in between. There was a crossfade between Halloweenmas. That's where we went to. So slowly but surely, trees started appearing, and we had multiple trees. And one day I go outside, and Jazz says, "Just go fetch, just take look order." And it's another tree. We don't have a Christmas tree. We got a Christmas forest. Okay, I don't know what's going on. There's like people building tree houses in my living room.
Yeah.
Please send us a photo. We'd love to see it.
Yeah. So Michael says, this is a good point. Michael says, Rich's pick and appearance are the best of all the people this morning, which shows that he walks his talk. Someone to learn from in this day of screen appearances, things that we've never thought of. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. He also says every new technology adjusts the requirements on our presentation and appearance. Today, you don't have to wear pants at all. Yeah, but I mean, at least make sure the top half is good, right?
Yeah, I think so. Small little hack, just as a thought that I didn't mention earlier. If you don't want to spend a fortune on gear, because it can get quite expensive, almost everybody now has an old cell phone, and your last generation cell phone still has a way better camera than your webcam in your computer. If you go to Camo software, so just search for Camo webcam software, CAMO. Yeah. It turns your phone, Android or iOS, into a really, really powerful webcam.
That's amazing. That's fantastic. You see useful stuff. You even get free tips. Rich's Scottish predecessors are all turning in their graves listening to how he powders his nose each morning, says Carl.
I know. Yeah, they absolutely are. They also, like, I don't drink either. So they disowned me ages ago. For like the last 20 years, my dad just pretended I'm drunk. All right, you're Richard, of course he drinks, right? He's having a wee dram now. That's no water, all right? That's not water, that's whiskey. and listen, bro, before I make this worse for my Scottish ancestors, like I need to tell you, I'm also, because it's very important that I mention this on every single thing, or else I lose my membership card. I'm also a vegan.
Oh Lord! Oh, no haggis for you.
You're not even like 5% Scottish anymore. No wonder Leanne picked up on your accent going away.
That's what happened. I moved to South Africa. You know what happened? I blame...
Turned into a soy boy.
Yeah, yes, and I blame that fucking Al Gore, okay? Fuck you, Al Gore. Fuck you. And I'll tell you why. Because Al Gore he did the only presentation in the history of the world to win an Oscar. It was called An Inconvenient Truth. Brilliant documentary, and actually a masterclass in presenting. And because one of my favorite things, and I said to you at the end, you know, that 4 steps, the last one, tell them what they need to do. You just watch this big thing about the world going to hell in a handbasket, and like the environment is screwed and you can't do anything. And then at the end of it, he turns around and says, but you must be thinking, what can you do? And I was, and you're thinking, next time you go to the shops, just buy an energy saving light bulb. That's it. That's the only change I want you to make. But he's smart AF, because you go to the shop, you buy an energy saving light bulb, and the instant you do that, you're telling yourself, hey, I'm a person who cares about this kind of thing. So you change your light bulb, then you change all your light bulbs. And every time you do that, you're further down to the fact that you're writing a story and selling yourself a story that you're a person who cares about this. Then you recycle, then you do this, then you're a bloody vegan. I mean, for God's sake, Al.
I love your
story. I still think that my vegan food made by my wife is more delicious than anything you guys have eaten in the last month.
Nice.
So I'm okay.
Yeah. listen, you talk about the power of storytelling, and you're really good at this, but I didn't buy any of Al Gore's bullshit. I haven't fallen for one part of it. I don't care about energy-saving light bulbs. I don't separate my rubbish. I don't eat vegan food. So
you don't separate your rubbish.
Not a single bit of his propaganda bullshit has got through to me. So I don't know whether that means I'm bad or he's not good.
No, I think it probably means you're smart in some ways. Listen, the energy-saving light bulb, but just don't be an asshole. It's not, I think, even if you don't like the environment, buying one light bulb that lasts you for 20 years is a lot cheaper than buying 20 light bulbs. And you don't need those white ones anymore. They've got nice yellow colors.
There are people who have 6 or 7 children in this world, and they have the cheek to tell me I must get an energy-saving light bulb. Please. You want to talk about
Gareth, no, I'm not talking to you. I'm not talking to you about environment. I'm saying to you at some point, this is one of my problems with a lot of people's argument, is if there is no falsifiability of your point of view. So even just from a purely economically logical standpoint, buying an energy-saving light bulb, if you're not buying an energy-saving light bulb, if you're buying cheap, crappy light bulbs that you have to replace every few years.
I know.
Yeah, so that's not a logical thing. You may as well buy the energy-saving bulb. But this is what happens. It does creep in. And then as for I think we all know that the recycling thing, we now know the data that this actually isn't making the impact that it says it is. Like there's a little bit of a long con there. And the final thing for me is the vegan thing has got nothing to do. The environment is a nice side effect for me. But the vegan thing is simply because I now live in a world where things don't have to die for me to eat delicious food. So that's not necessary anymore. But that's not to say anyway. Like I am indifferent to you doing it.
Yeah, well, I still think your ancestors would be deeply disappointed in you.
Oh, totally. In fact, a little part of me is doing it just to piss them off. They let the English walk all over them. Okay, they let the English do terrible things to them. This is my revenge to them. Your great grandson will be a teetotaling vegan. Sorry.
Your ancestors are the ones who are fucking with your accent, actually.
Yeah, exactly.
So let me
from heaven. Lekker, mooi blij.
We're going to wrap this up in a second, but I just want to tell you a quick Scottish story from Billy Connolly that's in my mind. As he always says, it's tattooed on the inside of my skull. And he tells this brilliant story, and he says at the beginning, he goes, oh God, I hope it's true. He says, my sister is a supply teacher in Glasgow, and she makes herself available when the other teachers are sick or whatever. And he says, and she took the bus. And when she got on the bus, there was a wee man, a dwarf, on the bus. And a woman got up and said to the dwarf, do you want to have my seat? I'm getting off the bus. And the dwarf flew into a rage and said, oh, it's because I'm a dwarf. You don't respect me because you think you feel sorry for me. It's pity. I won't take your seat, and I don't care about you, and don't be rude. All of this stuff. And I'm not going to keep up the Billy Connolly accent the whole way through. Anyway, he says, the bus trundled down the road. Everyone was fairly embarrassed, and they kept quiet. And at the next stop, a large Glaswegian woman got off. And she was walking down the aisle, and she turned to the wee dwarf person, and she said to him, I have just left my seat, and I would very much appreciate if you'd take it, because I see you're struggling to reach the straps to hold on, and you're being bounced around the bus. And he flew into his rage again and said, oh, it's because I'm a dwarf. And she went, no, it's because you are a person. And as a human being, I respect you enough to offer you my seat. And by the way, she says, I thought you were very rude to that other woman just now. And I'd like Snow White to punish you when you get home.
Anyway, amazing.
Have a happy day.
I'm listening to his biography, his autobiography at the moment.
Great.
Yeah,
isn't he great?
Yeah.
So apparently he's very sick.
Awesome.
Apparently he's not well, old Billy Connolly.
My one wee bit of advice for anybody who does like Billy Connolly and is considering buying the book for a nice Christmas read, it's excellent. Normally, I would say to you with an autobiography, get the book listened to, read by the author. In this case, read it yourself. You'll remember young Billy Connolly and you'll read with vibrance. Unfortunately, you're hearing a slightly different version of him, and it actually becomes quite sad to listen to in the delivery. So that's a small little sobering note to leave you on. But thank you so much, everybody, for having me. It's been wonderful chatting to you today.